Welcome to Primitive Archer TV. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Today I want to discuss the importance and the art of chasing a ring. Chasing a ring is a pretty simple concept that really just involves peeling back all the layers that the tree had grown, like an onion, all the way down to the one that you've chosen to be the back of your bow. On whitewoods, typically you're just peeling off the bark. On hardwoods, you'll remove all the sapwood and go down to a chosen ring in the hardwood section. So what you're looking for when you're done chasing a ring is for a continuous ring to go from tip to tip. You don't want any broken rings in your bow limb, because as that bow bends, the forces flow from tip to tip along that ring. And any breaks that happen within that ring are where your stresses will concentrate and cause a breakage. So here, I've got a bow that's got a ring chased on it. And if you look, it's all one solid surface. Now, if you're looking at the belly of the bow, the side that's facing you, you can see many ring violations. You can see all the individual rings there. You can see here where a ring is poking through. You can see there again and there again. So this is not a continuous ring. The stresses won't flow evenly under tension. Now here, you can see very clearly at the tip of this bow your different rings that are in the bow. And you can see this being the back, this being the belly. So belly's up here, back's down here. You can see I've got one very nice thick ring, a very thin ring, a thick one, a thin one, and a thick one. Now these thin ones are your lighter colored wood. They are not very structurally stable at all. They are like the corrugations in a piece of corrugated cardboard. They are what laminates your two stronger rings together. Now, that's on a finished bow. Well, when you grab a stave to start with, it can look like this after you get done knocking all the sapwood off of it. You can see that's obviously not a solid surface. Now here you can see all the rings that I have in this stave to choose from to be the back. Now the question comes up is, how do you choose what ring to be? If this was a continuous surface and not all chewed up like it is, I would look at these rings here and say that honestly any of these rings would make a decent back. And when I say these rings, again, I want to make sure you understand, I'm talking about the dark ones. The light rings there are just your laminated, let's call it a glue, that binds these dark rings to each other. When you're chasing a ring, the tooling edge finds that light wood, which is very brittle, and rides that layer and will allow you to delaminate the rings on top from the ring underneath. So, back to choosing a ring. I would honestly say any of these would make a good ring, but you want as little of that white crunchy stuff in your bow as possible. So I would honestly skip all these and come down to that one. That also happens to be my very first fat ring. That would be a very easy ring to chase because of its thickness. Any mistakes I make with my tooling or my edge tool while I'm removing these top layers, if I dive into it a little deep, I've still got plenty of thickness to recover with. I'm not going to blow through it. If I do accidentally break through this ring, go into that crunchy layer, it'll expose this ring. That's another very good ring to chase. So this would be the ring that I would choose to make my bow. That'll give me this ring here as a backup, and if I don't mess up, this ring is actually still a very good ring to have in your bow. And I've got a very nice stack of rings below that for any remaining rings that would be in the bending limb. So this is actually a really good example of a nice stave, to be honest with you. Now, you're not always that lucky, obviously. Sometimes you get staves that have smaller rings in it. Frequently you will, actually. Now this is a little harder to see because it's got glue on it. The glue is to help prevent the ends from cracking as the stave dries. But you can see up here, I'm trying to make sure y'all can. But you can see there, those rings are a lot thinner. And the ratio between your white wood and your darker wood, or your light rings and your dark rings, is more close to 50-50. And that's not ideal. But they'll still make a good bow. Really, that's all there is to the science of chasing a ring. You're just peeling back all the rings that you don't want on the bow, and just peeling them off. Now, a lot of folks will use a draw knife and they'll take it to their bow, or to their stave rather. And then some folks have a nice fancy setup where they've got like a bow press, which is really just a seat with a vise on it that'll clamp the stave in place for you. Now I do all my work standing up. To chase a ring, I like to keep my edge less than shaving sharp. Shaving sharp honestly scares me because sometimes I get a little carried away, or I'll do something stupid and get careless. But also a very sharp edge, like a shaving sharp edge, if it dives into the wood a little too much, it'll bite into the ring that you're trying to chase and go into it and damage your work. A slightly duller edge will stay inside that thin white crunchy layer of wood that I was discussing and ride in between the ring on top that you're removing and the ring you're trying to keep, and it'll stay inside of there and delaminate all the rings above it that you're wanting to remove. Now, let's see. I like to have a leather pad right here when I'm working up here at an angle, but we're gonna do a little bit of ring removal with this draw knife. You can see it really doesn't take a whole lot of effort. This is an awkward angle for me. I prefer to be down here on my belt. But so I have started a ring to be removed. Very easy here to see. I say that. Let's see if I can't get the lighting right here. Well, first off, I'll show you the ring I'm chasing. I've got this ring right here. From here to here is a continuous ring. This white stuff, this palish yellow, creamy color, that's that wood that's in between the rings. And then here's the ring that's on top. This is only darker because the Osage is aged. That has nothing to do with being an indication of the ring. Now right here, you can see there is the white crunchy wood on here, and you can really see it very well on that wood shaving, how it looks like ripples. Once again, that's that thin white ring that draw knife is finding and breaking through to delaminate this ring that I've got here on top. So I will simply brace it, one end of the stave up against a sturdy object. In this case, I'm using the frame of my barn. Then I'll grab my knife and I'll start just peeling off layer after layer. You can remove multiple rings at a time, but it is better, especially when you're not very experienced, to just start off with peeling one layer at a time off. That way, any mistakes you make, you're learning as you go. Now you can take your draw knife, and I wouldn't recommend you do it at a 90 degree to your bow or your stave like this. I recommend you turn it at a 45. And you hold it, and you can use it as a scraper. Now, the reason that's a good idea is because you get a buildup of that white crunchy stuff on your stave, and it makes it hard to determine as it gets feathered out while you're removing your ring. It makes it hard to determine where this ring stops and this one starts. So scraping that off highlights your transition between this ring and the one above it. Makes it easier to see, and also makes it easier for your draw knife and your edge tool to bite into. Now, draw knives can get pricey. So if you don't have a draw knife, but you do have a knife, you can use a knife to do this. I use my K-bar. It is my favorite bow making tool because it can do everything. Now I'm going to clean up some of this. Yeah, I hope you guys can see the fact that I've got some shavings falling off here. I'm just cleaning this up so I can see where that ring started and stopped a little bit better. And it's starting to rain outside. I hope the rain isn't overpowering my audio here. But now you can clearly see the ring I'm working on and the ring I'm removing. So I can take my knife, which again, slightly dull, and I'll grab it like this. I'm not really wrapping my hand around it too much. I do like that. Thumb here for control. And then hold the knife at an angle and pull it to me. That blade isn't really pressing up against my hand, but if that makes you uncomfortable, wrap a piece of leather or some masking tape around this, because I'm only using about this much of the edge anyway. And then I'll come over here and scrape some. Expose that ring better. And there you go. You can see I'm now a little higher up. Another technique that can be done, going the other way with it. You chop with it. You can use a chopping motion, just keeping the knife at about that angle right there. Not too flat, not too steep. I'm not even really doing it at a 45. I'm doing it closer to a 30, 35 degree angle. And I'm just chopping lightly with my wrist. I'm holding it mostly with this finger. That's what's holding the knife in place. And my thumb allows for some down pressure, and I use the rest of my fingers for roll control. And I'm not working the elbow. I'm just working the wrist, chopping downward. So my elbow is almost completely stationary. That's important for control purposes and energy conservation. And I don't know if you can tell by looking at me, but I don't like exerting a whole lot of energy. You only got so much energy you're going to exert before you decide to say, the heck with it. So I try to keep it within those limits. Now I go back to scraping. One-handed scrape here. Just that's how I hold my knife. Yeah, my fingertips are wrapping over it, which is why, again, I emphasize the knife is slightly dull. I cannot shave with this. If I try to do a paper slice on it, the paper is going to crinkle. I'm not cutting the wood. That is also a very important distinction. This wood is not being cut. This wood is being delaminated at its rings. So y'all can listen to some rain and some chopping noise which I find therapeutic. While I do this for a little bit, I wonder what that's going to sound like fast forwarded. Now, when you are chopping, you're going to get a little washboarding effect. To cure that, you take your knife or your scraper or whatever you're using, and you hit it with a 45-degree angle, not like this, and you scrape this way a few times. Then you come 45 the other direction and scrape a few times. What that does is it removes this chattering. If you come at it like this, you're just going to increase your chattering. It's going to make it worse. It's called washboarding. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that and show you what that looks like here in a second. Doesn't require a lot of energy. I'm just pushing down, not with a lot of force, just enough to get the job done. I'm almost done getting that chatter out of it. You don't want chatter in your finished product, because if you have chatter in your finished product, that's going to form what's called stress risers. It's a spot for an opportunity for breakage. So after doing a little bit of scraping, what is actually polished smooth? You're not going to get it much smoother than that even if you use sandpaper. And that's one of the things too that I love about using a knife. So I'm going to continue working on this and see what I can come up with, see what's underneath this top layer of wood here. And I'm gonna remove this top piece here. Now, I am pulling a knife towards me, but not in any kind of manner that I could even hit myself with, because my arms, the way they are, and the width that I have on myself, my hand hits me long before that blade comes within a few inches of myself. So I'm not, even though I know it looks unsafe, I'm not in any danger of hurting myself. But if you feel uncomfortable doing it that way, I would highly recommend you don't. So I don't want to recommend anybody do anything that they feel will be questioned. Now, I'll show you another technique I've got. I call this my bowyer's anvil. It's just a 4x4 bolted onto a sawhorse. And I've got a backing piece right here so that I can't slip off of it. I'll brace it like this right here. Lay it across my shoulder. And that allows me to take care of the work that I need to do on the end. And there you can see very clearly wood chips falling. Progress being made. Now I'm going to scrape some more. I've got, let's see, scrape right here and y'all can see what I'm doing. So I've got this white patch here that needs to be removed. Get this better lighting, I think. I don't know if that helped or not. Oh, there we go. Sometimes less is more. Alright. So this is mostly crunchy wood right here. Not a whole lot of ring left on top of it. Let's angle you so you can see better here. Hopefully the phone don't fall. There you see I'm able to take this ring off the end here. Just an elevated surface will do the trick. So now I'm going to come over here with my knife, holding it like a scraper, and clean it up. And just like that, you can see I have already chased from end here all the way to here on a ring. And that was only about 30 minutes, well, 21 minutes worth of demonstration, which included talking. But you can see work accomplished. I don't have much left. I got just a little bit more than what I just did. I'm just a little less than halfway done with that. So that's what there is to know about chasing a ring. Obviously there will be challenges that come into play, like little knots, pin clusters and stuff like that. You don't want to cut through those. You want to be able to chase that ring as well. That'll be something I'll touch on another episode. Something else I want to touch on real quick. You're often told to follow the grain, but if you're new to woodworking, you don't know what that means. That can be quite frustrating. So I'd like to show you what we're talking about when we say the grain. Now, you're looking at this stave, and if you're not quite sure what the grain is, you might not immediately pick up on all these little white lines that contrast against the darker yellow. Those indicate the grain lines. That is the direction that the grain is going. And as you can see, in general, they're going straight up and down. And if that doesn't show clearly to you, it'll show it more clearly when we get to this center section where you can see the white lines swoop in a curve here, a very gentle curve, but still a curve. That becomes even more noticeable here on this piece of dead wood where the edge died. You see that's curved. So here you're looking at, oh, there we go, that's a great shot of it. The curvature of the grain. Now, I'm challenged, or I'm met with a challenge here, because that swoop needed to be in the bow. And putting a swoop like that in a handle is more beneficial and feasible for me than putting it in a limb. The reason being is, you can see why there's a knot here. That's why that grain is doing that. But this is going to be a recurve. On a straight bow, having this in the limb wouldn't affect it in the least bit. But with a recurve, those curves at the end apply torsion to the limbs in a sideways motion. And any curvature in a limb like that is exaggerated. The stresses get exaggerated on it, and that can be a potential weak point or spot for breakage. So I decided to put that bit of character this bow is going to have right here in the handle. So you can see that even though I'm going to have it in the stiffest portion of the bow, I'm still trying to follow the grain. You can see where my arrow pass is. The grain is going this way. Well, I'm following that grain with this cutout. So I'm actually not stressing or violating any fibers by putting this cutout here. Then I So then I put my arrow rest here, and I come straight down, and I've got my little bulbous egg-shaped portion of the handle here. And you see I try to swoop back into it. I'm violating fibers here, but the thinnest part of my handle here will always be the thickest part going this way. So I've got I'm necked off here, I'm thin here, but I'm reinforced, so these fiber violations aren't as critical. But I pick up the grain lines immediately, and then fade back into the flow of the grains right where my fade hits and transitions. Oh, come on, camera, focus for me. Nice people on the other end of this want to see. But anyway, you can see where the limb starts thinning out is where this fades back into full width. And you can see here too, I'm violating the grains pretty aggressively here, but that's unavoidable. Then right here, I pick back up, get right back into the swoop of the grain, and I'm following the grain very nicely there in the middle of my handle, and then I try to fade back into it as quickly as I can. Once again, it's a mirror image of this, so you can see that as the handle gets thinner, this gets wider proportionally. So that's pretty much what we're talking about when we're talking about following the grain, and that's a very good visual description of what we're talking about too. Now you'll notice that there's a dark line here. This is actually a crack in the wood that I believe may go all the way through, because that lines up. A lot of people will stress greatly about this. You can fill it full of super glue, you'll be fine. You cannot fill it full of super glue and most likely be fine, so long as these cracks don't go at an angle to your bow or run off on an edge. And here you can see I have placed it so that, come on, focus. Freaking camera's got ADD over here. You can see that these don't fall off the edge of the bow. I've got it so that the handle keeps them within the working section of the bow. So these cracks aren't going to be any problem. And they've been there for a long time because they're oxidized, which allows them to show up very nicely. So I'm not worried about that, and if this is in your bow, you also shouldn't be worried about it. There's another one up here. It's close to the edge, but I don't care because, again, it's not running off the bow. As long as it doesn't run off the bow, it's not a problem because the lines of stress go up and down, and it's not cutting those lines of stress. So anyway, I just wanted to show you guys that, as well as a part of this segment in the show. So I would like to take a minute and encourage you guys to go check out Primitive Archer, primitivearcher.com. It is a website that is just chock full of outstanding knowledge of bowyers, both experienced and new. And that website will cover everything from how to make your arrowheads, like napping arrowheads, to making string, to making any kind of bow you can pretty much imagine. It's a fantastic online forum, and you guys should sign up and check that out for a lot of really good content. Again, that's primitivearcher.com. I appreciate y'all's time. I hope you have a great day.